I was going to sing "Welcome Back, My Little Friends" to the show that never ends, but that hit a little too close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. But today's show, folks, is brought to you by Smart Deploy, allowing IT to deploy one golden image to computer, any computer model, in minutes. Check them out at smartdeploy.com/Thurrott and go get some goodness for your deployments. Paul. What's that noise?
There's some giant vehicle driving by outside. It's probably the Pennsylvania leaf blower. Actually, it's a leaf vacuum machine. It's quite a service. I think it's why the taxes are so high here. They literally vacuum up every leaf in the neighborhood.
Yeah, my town does this too, where you just basically drag all your leaves to the curb, or make them into a pile, and then they come and collect them.
We never had that in Massachusetts. It's a nice service.
Yeah, it is. One of the other things, I don't know if I've ever told this story, but we'll tell it again because you know what? Why not? One other thing, it's in early June, maybe mid-June. They have what's called Big City Pickup, where you can quite literally drag almost, and I put a caveat next to almost, to the curb, and they will come and take it away.
So
you can drag.
Actually, here, you can do that any week. Like whenever they pick up the trash, you can put anything out there.
Do you have to put a tag or anything on it, like pay?
Nope. No, they just take it. And, when we moved here, that was particularly useful because we had all this stuff to throw out for like 3-4 weeks in a row, and they just took everything,
So we can drag like whatever out, but you have to go and buy these like tags, and then they're like 25 cents. Yeah. It's like 25 cents per like 25 pounds or something like that. But on one special day of the year, Paul, you can drag just about anything out. And,
it's Christmas for the trash pickers.
Yeah, no, it really is. And so one year I threw away my bathroom.
Yes. Why not? You were like waiting to do the remodel for that day, just specifically to make it easy.
And that's exactly what I did. We broke up the tile, and the tiling back in the 50s was real tile, and it was basically put on what's kind of like a concrete. And so I had boxes, quite literally boxes of just concrete. And I drug it all down.
Those guys must hate that day. They must hate it.
And
in Dedham, we could only put out like one big thing a week, and we had to call first. And for some items, you needed to get a tag, but it was like we'd have to store them up. So we'd have them in like their garage, and every week you'd bring out one of the big items.
Yep. And so the following year, I'm not even joking this, they put a limit of 50 pounds per box, probably because I heavily abused that. We literally bought a bathtub, and a bathtub comes in a big box. And what do we do with that box? We filled it with old concrete and tile, and that thing, no joke, probably weighed 300-400 pounds. So I am an ass. But you know what? I threw my bathroom away.
That's funny.
So
that's good.
Speaking of going away, Paul, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for people in China, but Skype is now gone from all Chinese app stores, temporarily, that is.
Yeah, I saw that. Obviously, China is a peculiar market, and my understanding is that most people in China use very specific messaging apps and whatnot anyway, so I'm not really sure how big of a deal this is to Microsoft, but...
Yep, I think it has to do with the fact that basically Skype is an unregulated service, and we know how the Chinese feel about unregulated services. So much
they should be regulated.
Microsoft built Microsoft built a custom version of Windows 10, and so Microsoft claims they will be back, and all those users are waiting diligently for that to come back, I'm sure.
Good.
Yeah. You know what else is happening in the world of Skype, Paul? And this one was very annoying.
Is this your notification thing?
Yeah. This I need to write this up because this made me angry in ways that I probably shouldn't be so angry, but it did. Was that in Skype, then whatever version I'm running the Windows 7 version that's not available for Windows 10, but on Windows 10 because I had an old version of Windows 10 when I installed it that was supported, but is now not supported. So whatever that version of Skype is called that you can now run on the desktop, if you're keeping track at home, I think there's 3 versions of Skype you can run on Windows 10 now. there was a notification in the bot area, and it was, like those stupid blinking notifications, and says, hey, why don't you try out this bot to learn how to cook better recipes from some recipe book thing that is now a bot. And I think we're going to start seeing more bot ads, because who doesn't want an ad bot in Skype?
Everybody? This is part of a continuum of advertising issues that plague Windows 10 generally, but I guess now Skype. I feel like this diminishes these products, that it makes them cheap. And Skype, whatever, it's kind of cheap as it is, but yeah, this is a troubling trend at Microsoft. I don't like to see this kind of thing.
No, and I'm actually trying to pull up a photo of the next thing we're going to talk about, because I totally forgot. But where'd it go? So our good friend and new writer of the site, Mahedi, or Mahidi, if you want to call him by his proper name. Look at this.
Oh, boy.
Look how fancy I am. Look at this. Live scrolling on the site. Impressive. So it was uncovered in the most recent insider build. There's a new, if you're familiar with OS X, there's this nice little feature. It's called Spotlight Search. When you pull up the search bar, or you pull up the search prompt, it gives you this nice little bar in the middle of the page, and you just start typing, and it kind of contextualizes everything and presents it to you. And someone was able to find this in the registry. And honestly, as dumb as this is, I'm pretty excited about this.
No, this is a great feature. Regardless of the relative quality of search on Windows versus the Mac, I think they're very comparable. Mm-hmm. The way you bring it up on the Mac is it's not intuitive. It's one of those things you have to learn. But once you learn it, it's like very natural. It's Alt on the Windows key, but it's whatever that little squiggly character is on the Mac keyboard. But it's just Alt space. It's a very natural thing, and then you just type and it comes up, and then you go off and you do your thing, and it's really well done. So I don't know how they're going to do this on Windows. Today, you hit the Windows key and type, and that search appears down below. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to guess, hopefully, if they do this right, the way this will work is you hit the Windows key, and if you type, that's when the search box comes up in the middle of the screen. But we'll see.
I'll be very curious to see how this materializes. Hopefully it shows up sooner. I mean, it can't be too long, because clearly people are getting it to work, and it seems to be just fine. Which kind of raises the next question: when is Microsoft going to kind of have one of their little, here's the Redstone 4 stuff that's coming type of event?
They're off schedule for that, right? I mean, last year they did it in October.
Yeah.
For the release that was coming out the following spring, and we're already a month past that date, basically. So I agree. Yeah.
So we will see how that cookie crumbles, but I'm actually looking forward to that one. And then, Paul, you finally posted up. Well, I shouldn't say finally. You got your Xbox.
Finally is fair. Finally is fair.
Okay. You finally got your review done. Is it still good?
Yeah. After wasting 2 hours this morning trying to get a Surface Book 2 article out, which I eventually was unable to do because of issues running games on other computers, because I'm trying to compare it. I decided to finish my Xbox One X review, which is awesome. The device, not my review necessarily, but the things I wanted to look at for the review were just some comparative graphics shots, which I think I did pretty effectively using Call of Duty. And then the one little bugaboo I had, I mentioned a couple of things that aren't necessarily great about the console, the cheap controller, the lack of internal storage expansion, especially, or whatever, user serviceable hard drive. But the big one for me is the hard drive, right? The speed of the hard drive. This has been kind of an issue with the Xbox One from day one, right? The very original one, right? The internal controller is just a basic SATA controller, and it's a 5400 RPM hard drive. So you're only going to get so much performance. In fact, it leads to kind of a weird thing where if you plug in an external drive using USB 3, it's actually faster to use that. But that's kind of inelegant. I would really like to be able to pop that thing out and put it in an SSD and get even faster load times. I don't understand why they haven't done that, but I finally took the time, because I've noticed with this console that it doesn't appear to be any faster loading games than the Xbox One S. So that's kind of a subjective thing. And so what I wanted to do was actually measure it. And you have to kind of do it by hand, right? I'm using a timer on my phone to time it, but I did. I went through and looked at several games. And a game like Forza Motorsport 7, which is an awesome game, Yeah, also notable for its slow load times. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but suffice to say that the Xbox One X does not outperform the Xbox One S from a disk load perspective in the real world on games. So that means loading a game, loading a level of a game once you've got the game up and running. In Forza, it takes over a minute from the time that you click on something that says, I want to start a race, till the time you can click on something else that says, actually start the race. It takes over a minute. It takes over a minute on the Xbox One S, and it takes over a minute on the Xbox One X. The X is a little faster. On smaller games like Cuphead is a pretty good example, where load times don't actually impact the game too much, except right in the beginning. It's maybe 10 or 15% faster, but it's not. I don't remember what the Microsoft figure was, 40%. So I don't know what's going on there, and that's disappointing. I suppose I could take the time to put stuff on an external drive and then test the relative performance of that versus the internal thing. But the truth is, I'm never, you just use the thing. You don't really worry about it. So that was like the one thing that was disappointing, but a big, kind of big time disappointing. But the console's excellent, right? It's real 4K, depending on the game, 4K, HDR, 60 frames a second actually works. It's awesome. I had gone back and forth between the two consoles a number of times. And when you go back to the S, even though you wouldn't have thought so if you'd never seen it on the X, games just don't look as good. It's kind of terrible. And Call of Duty is a great example of that, where I went back and said, I'll play multiplayer today on this thing instead of the X. And I was like, oh, geez, like, this is terrible. Like, why does this look so bad? And it's just because the X version looks awesome. It just makes, it makes the case for spending the money to upgrade.
Question: have you heard of anybody having any major problems with their X?
No, I mentioned that really briefly in the review. I think it is notable. We're probably only a couple of weeks into its lifetime. Obviously, they probably sold a ton right up front. So, given the nature of Twitter and the internet these days, if there had been major problems so far, we would have heard about them. Have not heard of them. I mean, I've heard of a couple of random things. Obviously, that happens with anything. But so far, so good. Obviously, given the history of Xbox, we want to pay attention to this. Given the fact that this console is smaller, doesn't have an external power brick, which is kind of miraculous, doesn't make a lot of noise even when you're cranking along in 3D games all day long. There are some long-term concerns about heat impacting things and changing things over time. So, I'll keep an eye on that. The way I'll do that is by playing games all the time. I do it. It's work. I have to. You don't have to thank me. I know the term hero is sometimes thrown around, but it's something I'm willing to do. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Anyways, the only thing I have seen is there was one video that was posted on YouTube of one user who did have an issue, and the problem was that his fans were just always running at max. But but the console still booted and everything else. But pretty much brings up, I mean, that's it. Like, that's it. And to your point, I think somebody out of England or one of the reporting agencies said in the UK alone, I think 80,000 of these things were sold. And that's only in the UK. You can imagine it's probably some multiple derivative higher of that here in the US. And the fact that there isn't widespread or rampant complaining on social media, because that's pretty much all social media is good for, is a good sign for Microsoft.
The other thing is, I feel like, and this, we all do the same kind of thing. It's in the tech world and personal technology, there is no issue too small for people not to bitch and moan about it. There's nothing you can't be pedantic about. There's nothing you can't be nitpicky about. There's nothing you can go in and say, yeah, I know this is really good, but what about this? This is a very common thing in our world. I feel like it's magnified or intensified in the gaming space by a factor of like 10 or 100. It's surprising and weird to me how negative and awful people can be about video game stuff. We see this in the Microsoft world with the strategy where people will complain because there are no true exclusives because you can't buy one game that only works on the Xbox One X. And to some people, for some strange reason, that is a huge problem. Whereas I look at what Microsoft's doing, and I think they've gotten it exactly right, because you can buy games that work across a variety of devices, and they look better as you kind of scale up to the higher end versions. It's kind of a nice thing for people who invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in games or peripherals or whatever, that they can go buy this new console and all of that stuff is better just by virtue of the fact that they upgraded. Nothing gets left behind, I think that also makes the fact that there hasn't been a lot of complaining about the whatever reliability, whatever you want to say, all the more notable, right? Because these people would have come crawling out of their holes at the first second to complain about anything, and that's what people are going to do. People will do it about some of the 4K stuff. There's no such thing as a true 4K console because every single game isn't 4K and 60 frames a second all of the time. Yeah. So that claim is false. And it's like, guys, get over yourself. I mean, like, seriously.
Yep. I tend to agree. The one thing I'm not going to get over here, Paul, is it came out right before the show that Google on Android phones is tracking your location even if you have all of your location settings set to do not track me because I like privacy. It came out, says, since the beginning of 2017, Android phones have been collecting the address of nearby cellular towers, and even when those location services are disabled, and to make it worse, they are sending that data back to Google against your own will or better judgment.
I like the against your will part. We'll see what Google says about this. The issue is it's Google, so even if they play this off as something innocent and like, we didn't even notice that was on. Sorry about that. It's Google. No, I mean it's Google, right? So people are going to be like, oh, here we go again.
Yep.
Can't trust these guys. Yeah, it's not good.
No, I mean, if only they didn't have a pretty rich history of this, such as leaving the microphone on with all the devices they sent out to viewers.
Right. Yep.
And,
it's like riding a bike. It's just easy to fall back into.
Yep. Unfortunately, like a bike, though, you can't really use the Pixel 2 outside.
Wow.
I had to get that in there somehow.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
I think it is notable that the only Pixel or Google hardware that doesn't work well is the one I've decided to keep. But it really does work well. It's fine, actually. So far, so good.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's my story, Brad. And I'm sticking with
it. When we're in Hawaii, we need to get a picture of you trying to use your Pixel outside, and I'll have my AirPods in, just looking like an idiot.
Or with a towel over my head.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to see it for yourself. You can see what the difference is.
Speaking of Tech Tuesday, folks, Paul, you tried out the EV. That's kind of interesting name.
Yeah.
A cloud source.
I took that as 5. I'm not sure if that's what that means or not, to be honest.
Yeah. It's like half an iPhone X or an Xbox One.
So the EV or the E5, whatever the name of this thing is billed as the world's first crowdsourced computer. That's kind of interesting on its own level. It's a Surface Pro clone, right? So it looks and works a lot like a Surface Pro. Has some advantages over Surface Pro, including much better device expansion. So multiple USB-C ports, multiple USB 3 full-size ports. And the keyboard cover, or the keyboard, I guess we call it a type cover, can be detached and still work because it's Bluetooth powered, right? So it kind of works attached or not attached to the device, which I think is obvious, and I've always wondered why Microsoft never did that. You can also control the backlighting. There's a key combo you can type that will change the color of the backlit keys. It will cycle between 7 different colors, blue, red, green, etc., which is nice. The selling point here is that this thing is significantly less expensive than a Surface Pro. So I don't remember the exact numbers, but this particular device, I want to say, was on the order of $750 less expensive than an equivalent Surface Pro, which is significant. They include a pen, which is not as powerful as Surface Pen, but is probably good enough for most people, 1024 pressure-sensitive points N-trig. They include the type cover, which is good and bad, right? Because you don't have a choice of colors like you do with Surface, but they do include that stuff in the price. And then they go with Y-series processors across most of the models. They have an M3 version as well, like Surface does. But Surface uses the more standard kind of U-series part, which for 7th generation, which is what the Surface Pro is today, is a dual-core part, right? But it's kind of a full-powered normal Core i5, Core i7 processor for mobile devices. This machine uses a Y series, which is basically like a Core M, which is basically not necessarily great. Although I've been told that this new the generation of the processor that's in this device is actually a significant advance over what came before. But of course, I've been told that about every Core M processor that's ever come out. So, I mean, I'm not sure what to say to that. I'll benchmark it and we'll look at it. But it's bigger. Well, it's thicker and heavier than Surface Pro. The materials are not as premium. It's smudgy. It's easy to smudge. I have a nice kind of Alcantara keyboard cover or type cover for the Surface Pro. This thing has something that has like a material that's like a cheap version of that, and it seems to attract lint. So it's not on the same level. But the thing is, the PC business, the PC market, one of the big advantages is this kind of choice, right? And so they're not the only company making a Surface Pro clone, but they did reach out to their users and their fan base, and they went back and forth for many months to determine what this thing would be. And the people who wanted it to be this way had the chance to, I think it was Indiegogo or one of those services, pay for it up front and get it in advance, and then they're going to have a flash sale. I think it's next week or 2 weeks from now for a second round of people. But it's an interesting way to do it. And, we'll see. So I'm going to look at the performance. I'm going to look at the battery life. The screen is really high quality. It's basically, or literally, I think it's even a little higher res than the Surface Pro screen, but it's in the same ballpark, same size. It's interesting. It's an interesting device. But we'll see. I've only had it for a few days, so.
Well, I was going to say the show must go on, but it still is going on. I think the time will tell.
Just stating the obvious.
We are still recording, folks.
Yep. Life is occurring around us. Yes.
Yeah. I heard a noise and I thought all my lights were going to shut off. I
enjoyed your animation of your light shutting off in that article today, by the way.
Yeah.
That kind of what the F moment where it's like, seriously, like that we all have. Anyone who deals with technology has that moment, probably on a daily basis.
What Paul is referring to is I wrote up a post. It's called IoT Hell, or Living in IoT Hell, which was, if you watched the podcast yesterday, you will understand why. If not, go check out that article for a great GIF that is included. That way you don't have to listen to anything. You can just watch my face just crumble in the face of bad driver updates. So.
Yep.
You got anything else for today, Paul?
No, I might write a Call of Duty review. I think it's worth reviewing. And then I have a lot of device stuff to do. I've got Minecraft is out in VR. I'm going to look at that today. I still haven't looked at Steam VR on Windows Mixed Reality. I'm going to try to look at that, if not today, then this week. I've got this. This is one of those things that's going to be instantly made fun of because it is so easy to do so. But Lenovo sent me it's like an augmented reality Star Wars thing where you get like a lightsaber and a helmet and you can fight with a lightsaber using a phone. So I got that going for me.
You know what you need to,
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
I will, no, I don't think you know where this one's going. I will probably never see you for at least 3 weeks if you figure this out. You need to get Steam VR up and running on your headset. Yep. And then they have Train Simulator.
Oh my. I went out last night to a bar that was next to the tracks, the tracks that are the train that we always hear here. And I asked my brother-in-law, who took me there, if we could have train side seating. And he said, "There's something very wrong with you." That was the exact phrase.
He's not wrong. So, if you get that up and running, Paul loves his trains, which everyone needs hobbies. Some of them just left them when they were 3 years old. But anyways, folks, today's show is brought to you by Smart2Play, hardware-independent imaging software for businesses with 50 to 50,000 users. They got you covered. Go check them out, smart2play.com/Thurrott for free offer, and we'll catch you right back here tomorrow for We Help Wednesday.